Hey y'all, and welcome back to my little cozy and healthy corner of the internet. Today we're going to be talking all things circadian rhythms and syncing your body and your body functions up with the sun. And that's just because that is what we are biologically designed to do. And I'm kind of starting this deep dive series on my YouTube talking about different parts of health, not just nutrition, that really coincide with living by your biological design. So what living by your biological design really means is that you're really living in a way that syncs up well with your cellular health, with your hormones, and your body is able to flourish when you do this. I think in our day and age, we've really gotten to a point where things are just, we're so out of whack. We are almost living like robots. And I feel kind of like we need to take a step back, get out in nature, look at our schedules, look at what we spend time doing, and really evaluate, are we living by our biological design? Is our schedule, the way we live, the way we even speak, and what we wear and what we eat, are those really supporting us at a cellular level? And could all of those things in our entire lifestyle, all the components of our lifestyle kind of coming together, could that be what is actually holding us back from having a really healthy and flourishing life, mind, and spirit? So I will preface this by saying, since I am a Christian, I do kind of tie in the biological design principles with faith a lot. And so I think that's really cool. And if you are a Christian, I think you'll really enjoy this. If you're not, I encourage you to stick around anyways, because a lot of this information is just really interesting. If you're new here, my name is Sarah Childers. I'm a holistic registered dietitian. I own my own practice, and I just started my YouTube channel in hopes to spread some knowledge on the internet and also have a corner of the internet that's not only healthy but also motivating and encouraging, and just really sheds light on the subject rather than making you feel like you're not doing enough. So since we're talking all about circadian rhythms today, I kind of want to go over what is a circadian rhythm, because it's gotten very popular in the last few years, and I feel like a lot of people know what it is, but some people still don't. And the circadian rhythms, or your circadian rhythm, is basically your internal 24-hour body clock that runs, or should be ran, with the sun, and sunlight exposure and different light exposure triggers different things like thyroid hormones, other hormones, and different cellular processes to occur in your body. And a lot of people like to tie this in with Chinese medicine, because Chinese medicine has a 24-hour time clock that tells which part of the body is working the most at different times through the day and even throughout the night. A lot of people in the past have called this a sleep-wake cycle because it does trigger sleepiness and alertness, and it is what helps you support your sleep patterns. And I think that's a huge part of the circadian rhythm subject and talk, but I think there's actually so much more to it than just that. But I will say, if you can optimize your sleep, you can really optimize your health, because your brain detoxes when you sleep. You're able to kind of reset and reboot, and there's actually a lot of different processes that happen while you sleep that really support your health. And if you're not getting good sleep, those processes aren't supported. One of these examples is liver health and gallbladder health. And I found that very interesting because so many people, and there's been so many studies kind of show that 93% of us have metabolic issues here in America, and a lot of those metabolic issues are liver health related. And what I didn't know, but I figured out while I was kind of working on this video and doing some research about it, just seeing if I'm covering all my bases, is that humans are not the only creatures with a circadian rhythm, with a 24-hour time clock. It may not be 24 hours for all living creatures, but I kind of think it is from what I've seen. Almost all living organisms have a circadian rhythm. Humans, animals, plants, even little microbes, and there's actually an entire field of science called chronobiology, which is the study of things like circadian rhythms and how living organisms behave over time. So how this works on a scientific and biological level with humans is that when your eyes are exposed to light and different types of light, because there's different types of light that kind of occur throughout the day. You have sunset, sunrise, you have midday, where there's a lot of sunlight. So whenever that light really touches your retinas signal to the hypothalamus, and the hypothalamus is kind of like your circadian rhythm portion of your brain, I guess you could say. And from there, it sends signals to different parts of your brain, signaling different things like production of melatonin. And I found this really interesting because I think that is one of the many reasons why things like blue light disrupt people's sleep so much, because when you're constantly being exposed to light as if it's the middle of the day, your hypothalamus is going to get really confused as to what time of day it is and what it needs to signal to other parts of your brain. And if you are experiencing a lot of exposure to light late at night from scrolling on your phone or watching TV or working late into the night on your laptop, you don't make as much melatonin as you're supposed to. And I thought that was not only interesting but very telling of why a lot of people don't get great sleep at night, is because their melatonin isn't being produced, which is your sleep hormone. And a lot of people are really worried about taking too much melatonin, and I feel like melatonin used to be on the market a lot for sleep, but has kind of gotten taken a back seat to things like magnesium or GABA or L-theanine. And I kind of wonder, after doing this research, if melatonin is really that bad to take. I know it makes you, or some people, feel really groggy when they take it, and some people are worried that it's habit forming, so that your body won't produce it very well. But I honestly think if you are lowering the light exposure throughout the day, or as it gets into the nighttime, you're decreasing your light exposure, you're turning off overhead lights, you're turning on lamps, maybe lighting a fire or some candles instead, and not having too much light exposure from blue light, I feel like that can make a huge difference in someone's sleep patterns and melatonin production, even if you have supplemented with melatonin a lot in the past and you feel like you're dependent on it. So as I said before, these different signals that go to your hypothalamus in your brain happen at different times throughout the day, and there are different signals that happen throughout the day, and that's kind of why it's dependent on sun exposure. So let's kind of think about it. So when you're waking up and you're exposed to the sunlight, you're exposed to possibly sunrise if you get up early enough, you will start to ever so gradually wake up and start forming natural energy. And hopefully throughout the day, as the sun is at its peak, you will have the most energy and you'll be able to get the most done throughout the day. You'll be the most alert. And then as the sun goes down, naturally, so will our energy level. And I did actually end up finding a really interesting study because I was looking into circadian rhythms, but also seasonal circadian rhythms, because when you think about it, the days in the summer are a lot longer than the days in the winter, and our sun exposure in the winter is a lot different than that of the summer. Like right now, it's winter when I'm filming this video. It's so gray outside. I think it's about 8 a.m. or something, and the light is just not as great as it would be in the summer. And this study actually studied how our DNA changes with different types of light exposure. And it says that up to 25% of our DNA actually shifts with the seasons and with the light exposure in different seasons. So for example, they found that with natural sunlight exposure, mostly in the winter, your body's DNA takes that certain type of sunlight and actually prepares the DNA to be more proactive against things like viruses and boosting your immunity. And then in the summer, it found that your DNA actually shifts so that it also helps with blood sugar control and burning off winter fat, but also it could be that a lot of times in the summer we have exposure to a lot of different fruits and produce and things like that naturally, if we are living with the seasons and stuff. And if we're eating with the seasons, we're naturally going to eat a lot more fruit and things like that in the summer that have high amounts of natural sugars. So when you have good sun exposure in the summer and your DNA is shifting with the summer months and your light exposure in the summer months, then you're naturally going to have a little bit better glucose control, which I thought was so interesting and fun, but also kind of brought me back to the whole conversation about like blue light exposure and how much that actually has a bad impact on the way that our genetics are even expressed. And also, if you look around and you see anyone in your life who gets sick a lot during the winter, I think it would be very interesting if you asked, like, say 10 people who often get sick in the winter if they scroll on their phone a lot, or if they watch TV late into the night, or if they get up very early with the sunrise, because I wonder if maybe they aren't living by their seasonal rhythms and stuff. Another thing that is activated by sun exposure is vitamin D, and this is something that I talk about so much with clients, but I actually found when I was doing the research for this video that when your vitamin D is activated, it also acts kind of like a antidepressant, especially during the summer months. And I think that's why you see a lot of people have less sun exposure in the winter and start feeling like the winter blues or whatnot. And I think that's also telling, not to get too controversial here, but when it comes to so many women having so many hormonal issues and hormonal imbalances and having low vitamin D levels, like in my practice a lot, I see that women they usually have all three of these things. They have a hormone issue, whether it's PCOS or undiagnosed hormone issue, a vitamin D deficiency, and then they have anxiety and depression. And those are three things that I see, I would say, with 60 to 70% of the women that come into my practice, ages 25 to 35, they struggle with that. And I find that so interesting because it really is all connected. And if we can sync up our schedules with our natural biological design, I wonder how much those things would naturally improve without us having to get a prescription or worry a whole lot about what is the root cause of our health problems. And vitamin D is something that I really want to talk about and dive deep into as I talk more about circadian rhythms and hormones. And there's different factors that influence, of course, your vitamin D absorption. But when it comes to what vitamin D does in the body, it's so essential, and really the only good place to get vitamin D is from the sun. So having good sun exposure, living by your circadian rhythms, and knowing when the sun is at its highest peak is really important to know if you have a vitamin D deficiency, because I would say that majority of Americans, at least 40, according to a study that I saw, sure. Yep, 40 to 80% of Americans have to supplement with vitamin D. And there's a lot of drawbacks to this, not just, a lot of vitamin D supplements are vitamin D2, not D3, and they're not absorbed as well. But also a lot of clients that I see are on vitamin D supplements, and they are kind of going to be on them forever unless they get good sun exposure, because when you stop taking a vitamin D supplement, it's pretty much gone. Your vitamin D levels will go back down. It's not treating the root cause. It's kind of just a band-aid. And oftentimes I see a lot of practitioners who may not be trained in nutrition prescribing these mega doses of vitamin D because people are so low. And that's not really the worst thing in the world to do, but I will say, if somebody has really, really low vitamin D levels and then they are taking calcium or eating a lot of calcium-rich foods, their bones can actually calcify, and that can cause joint pain and aches and things like that that we don't want. And that is because vitamin D and calcium work together in the body to support absorption of one another. And so that's actually meant to be a really good thing. You know, we're meant to actually have really good sunlight exposure and to be able to eat things like dairy or leafy greens or anything that has calcium in it and naturally be able to absorb as much as we need efficiently so that we can have strong bones. But there is like another side of the coin or another side of the spectrum where too much of a good thing is actually not great. So there is actually a very unique process that your body goes through when it's exposed to the sun. It's exposed to the sun, and the cholesterol kind of in your skin will, for lack of a better term, convert into the usable form of vitamin D, which is actually a hormone. And this hormone helps to make a lot of other hormones in the body, such as thyroid hormones or other sex type hormones. And I think that is also where a lot of women who have thyroid issues or PCOS or any hormonal imbalances who are also really deficient in vitamin D see issues. And you kind of wonder when you see this information about how vitamin D from the sun is a hormone and makes other hormones in the body. When somebody has a hormonal imbalance, you kind of wonder, is vitamin D the root cause? And is your inability to either get out in the sun or absorb as much sunlight as you need to in your daily life, could that be a very big contributing factor and possible root cause to a lot of hormonal imbalances? And it's very hard because we live in a day and time where we're inside a lot. We have busy lives. We might get up early, go to the gym, go inside our house, get ready for the day, drive in our car, not being exposed to sunlight, to our workplace. We get in our workplace. It's possibly a large building. We may or may not have any windows even. We start working, then we go home, or we pick up our kids, or, you know, there's not a lot of times during the day where you can get outside and just be very leisurely if you work a full-time job or even a part-time job, or if you're a busy parent or something like that. And I think that's why it's important to really prioritize your time and really be very intentional about your time and your habits and what you put in your schedule so that you can really support yourself while also not changing your entire life and your entire schedule because you need more vitamin D exposure. I'll give you a few examples of different things people can do throughout their days if they're very low in vitamin D and if they work a full-time job. These are a few things that I did when I worked in healthcare, things that I would do throughout the day to kind of support my vitamin D levels and get outside, but also be able to be a good employee. But first, I'm going to go over a few other things that vitamin D helps with other than just hormone balance for women. It also helps boost immunity. It helps manage stress by releasing things like serotonin, and it helps create a sense of calm, clarity, and focus in your mind if you're able to be exposed to sunlight throughout your day. It can also help with thyroid support and blood sugar control in order to boost your metabolism so that you burn the energy that you consume from calories and food efficiently. Also, sunlight exposure regulates your thyroid in a sense that it helps release or determine how much TSH is released. And TSH in your thyroid releases and makes things like T3 and T4. And these are the hormones, the thyroid hormones, that go and are taken to your cells of your body and give you energy to live and have a really good metabolism. And so when we're exposed to more sunlight, we have the ability to make more thyroid hormone. So if you have thyroid issues, I truly believe that more sunlight exposure for you would be so healing on your journey. Also, since your brain has a huge part to play in circadian rhythm regulation with the hypothalamus, your brain also runs on a circadian rhythm, especially your blood-brain barrier. So if you don't know what the blood-brain barrier is, it is a barrier that allows things into the brain. And a lot of people have researched the blood-brain barrier because if you can get rid of toxins in the brain and help them leave the blood-brain barrier, or if you can get really good things like nutrients through the blood-brain barrier, that helps with brain function, cognitive ability, especially in people who have different cognitive disorders and things like that. And I find that just really so interesting because if you are able to use sunlight, something that is absolutely free to transform your health and to really hone in on how you can transform your brain health or someone else's brain health, like possibly in your family, I think that can be absolutely transformative and a great tool to use in conjunction with other treatments. I know I'm getting kind of off subject here, but I just think that's really cool. So let's talk about how to get more sunlight or how to get less blue light, honestly. So when it comes to sunlight exposure, the three most important parts of your day to get good sunlight exposure is morning, noon, and night. And a lot of times we can get really busy and hone down, and we can honestly forget about our circadian rhythms and how important they are. And I actually found an app that can help you balance your circadian rhythm. So it's this one. It says Circadian. And what I like, isn't that so cute? It's a bear. So yes, I had the free version. I just wanted to try it out to see how it was. But basically, it gives me different times during the day to go outside. It has here 6:30 is my time to wake up. I usually wake up at 5:30, but if I don't wake up at 5:30, I wake up at 6:30. And so I have that set, and it has just like birds chirping, and it's very calming. And I've actually used it some as an alarm to get up because I get very irritated by noise in the morning, and it's really something that doesn't irritate me. And then you tell what your location is, and it gives you a time when sunrise is happening, so you can go and see the sunrise, so it can naturally sync up your circadian rhythms. Then it will give you another notification on your phone for when it's noon or when your sunlight is at its highest peak, so that you can go outside. And that is really good and optimal for thyroid hormone levels and just getting as much sunlight and serotonin as you can throughout the day, even if it's a short amount of time. And then also it shows when nightfall is and when to start avoiding or blocking blue light as much as possible. And you can actually, when you get this app, you can put in different goals you have for syncing up your circadian rhythms, and it will actually give you like a little dashboard of the different parts of like light exposure, when to eat, when to fast, the UVA and UVB exposure, when you're asleep, when's the best time to exercise, and when your peak condition is. And it's all based in science, and I just think this is very, very interesting and a really good little tool to have when you are trying to work on syncing up everything, but you feel kind of frazzled by trying to get outside all the time and trying to always remember it. So I think this, or just setting reminders on your phone, can be a great way to get outside and really sync up your body with the sun. But also, some things I did when I was working, like, of course, I try to have like some sort of sun exposure, like for 5 to 10 minutes at least in the morning, whether it's when I walk out of the gym to my car, or if I'm making breakfast and I just hop outside on my porch for like 2 seconds and watch the sunrise. And then during the day, when I was working, I would go on a walk in the parking lot with like friends after we ate lunch or something like that, or I would go by myself when I worked by myself, and we would just take a little 5 to 10 minute walk in the parking lot to not only like digest our food, but also to get some sunlight exposure. And if you don't have a lot of time during your lunch break, I think something good you can do is, if you work in a big office building or a hospital or something like that, sit by a window, a huge window that had like pretty much direct sunlight exposure. And if I had to work on my laptop, or if I was just eating my lunch, or if I was in a meeting, I always tried to get close to a window in order to at least just get that sunlight on me. I also, I do have a sunroof in my car, and I'll always put that up as well. And then later in the afternoon, sunset is honestly the hardest part for me. I don't always watch sunset, but I do know when sunset is because of this app, and I will gradually put my blue light glasses on and wear them at night until I go to bed, and then I'll have less overhead lighting on, which I don't like overhead lighting anyway. Like if you walk into my house anytime, it's usually like kind of dark, and the windows and lamps are literally the only thing that are on. Reading more than you watch TV. And this has been a huge barrier of entry for me personally, because my husband enjoys watching TV. I love to read, but I'm an extreme extrovert and I want to be around people all the time. And so if that means watching TV as well when I don't necessarily want to, I will, just because I like being around people. Recently, I've gotten to where I try to start reading some at night, and I've noticed a huge difference in how relaxed I am when I read at night and instead of watching TV, because sun exposure isn't there. Also, reading for like 10 minutes, even as little as 9 to 10 minutes at night, can help you calm down so much to where it really transforms your sleep. And I think that honestly, the nighttime and light exposure at night is people's biggest barrier to entry when it comes to like living by their biological design. And there's a girl that I don't follow on Instagram, but I had seen one of her posts on my For You page, because obviously the algorithm knows me very well. And she had actually posted a video talking about how her and her husband and their family were doing what is called a sundown challenge. And it's basically where when the sun sets, you only have candles and things. And they were, I don't even know if they were going to use lamps, but they were only going to use things like candles or a fire and read at night or whenever the sun set, in order to really just calm things down and calm down their minds. Because with blue light exposure, you also have overconsumption, but like also to sync up their circadian rhythms. And I feel like a nightdown challenge is something that could really catapult you into success in making circadian rhythms a habit. Honestly, the more that I think about light exposure, the more I think about its consumption and blue light, the more I want to try it, because I really feel like there's a lot of transformational things out there, but because we're so addicted to our phones and because we're so addicted to our screens, we don't actually do those transformational things. And I want to take this part of the video to just challenge you to get out of your comfort zone, consider trying out less blue light and more reading, more candlelight. If y'all have any suggestions for any other ways to live by your circadian rhythms, whether it's like grounding in the morning or whether it is things you like to do at morning or at night to really sync up your circadian rhythms, I would love to know in the comments. But as always, like and subscribe, and please stay along for more deep dive and more talks.